Welcome to Silent Screams. Today, I want to take you through a story that dives into the terrifying world behind one of the most iconic horror games ever created, Silent Hill. This isn't just a look at the game. No, this is something far worse. I've experienced things that still haunt me. So sit back, turn off the lights, and prepare yourself for a nightmare that crawls under your skin. It started out simple enough. I'd always been a fan of Silent Hill, so when I stumbled upon an old, scratched-up copy of the original game in a flea market, I didn't think twice about picking it up. The game's been out of print for years, so finding it felt like winning a small lottery. I remember the vendor, an old man with yellowed teeth, grinning at me as I handed over the cash. "Good luck," he said, with a chuckle that seemed to echo even after I walked away. That night, I decided to play it. Nostalgia, right? The game booted up fine, and I was immediately pulled back into the foggy streets of Silent Hill. Everything felt the same at first. The eerie music, the unsettling atmosphere, the sense that something was watching you from the shadows. I was having a blast. But then, things got weird. I know Silent Hill is supposed to be weird. That's its thing. But this was different. After about an hour of playing, I noticed things happening in the game that I didn't remember from before. For instance, when I entered the old school building, where the puzzles are supposed to start, there was this sound. A whisper. It was so faint I almost didn't catch it, but it was there. A woman's voice, I think, repeating the same word over and over. "Come back." At first, I thought maybe my imagination was playing tricks on me. After all, I was alone in my apartment, the lights off, the game's tension mounting. But as I kept playing, the whisper grew louder. "Come back, come back." It seemed to be coming from the game, but there was no way to shut it off. No matter where I went in the game world, the whisper followed me. Then the game froze. It wasn't a normal freeze either. The screen flickered, the music distorted into this low, droning hum. I tried to restart the console, but the power button wouldn't work. Just as I was about to unplug the whole thing, the screen went black, and a new image faded in. It was my apartment. On the screen. No, seriously. The game was showing my living room, down to the last detail, the couch, the TV, even the jacket I'd left draped over a chair. At that point, my heart was racing. This wasn't possible. How could it see me? Then, the image zoomed in on the hallway. The hallway right behind me. A figure stood there, barely visible in the shadows. It was tall, with elongated limbs and a face that I couldn't quite make out. My breath caught in my throat as I turned around to check the hallway behind me. Empty. But when I looked back at the screen, the figure had moved closer. Now it was standing just behind the couch in the game. And then, I heard it. A soft, slow creak, like floorboards shifting underweight. From the hallway. I spun around again, but there was nothing. I was shaking now, every nerve in my body on edge. I didn't want to keep playing, but something inside me, some sick curiosity, kept me glued to the spot. The figure on the screen moved again. Now, it was right behind where I sat. I turned off the console. The rest of the night was a blur. I couldn't sleep, no matter how hard I tried. The next day, I convinced myself it was all just some weird glitch, maybe a modded version of the game, or some bizarre Easter egg. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Over the next few days, things escalated. The whispering didn't stop. It followed me around the apartment, growing louder and more insistent. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I'd hear footsteps pacing outside my bedroom door. At first, I thought it was my upstairs neighbor, but the footsteps were too close, too clear, like someone was right outside. One evening, as I was sitting at my desk trying to distract myself with some work, the power went out. My apartment was plunged into darkness, and in that silence, I heard it again, the whisper. This time, it was right next to me. "Come back." I jumped out of my chair, heart pounding, and grabbed my phone for the flashlight. As I swung the light around the room, I saw a glimpse of something in the corner. A figure just like the one I'd seen on the screen. Tall, gaunt, its face hidden by shadow. And then it spoke. "Come back, you never left." I screamed and stumbled backward, my phone clattering to the floor. The figure didn't move, but I could feel its eyes on me, boring into my soul. I ran for the door, but when I got there, it wouldn't budge. The handle was ice cold, and no matter how hard I pulled, it stayed locked. Behind me, the whisper grew louder. "Come back, come back." I turned, and the figure was gone. Just like that. My heart was racing, my chest tight with fear. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was losing my mind. A week went by. I refused to turn the game on again, but the nightmares didn't stop. Every night, I found myself back in that foggy town, wandering the streets, trying to escape from something I couldn't see. And every night, I woke up drenched in sweat, the whispers still echoing in my ears. I started seeing the figure in the real world, too. Out of the corner of my eye, in reflections, always just on the edge of my vision. But when I turned to look, it was gone. My friends thought I was losing it. Maybe I was. One night, after another sleepless night, I decided to try something. I didn't know if it would work, but I was desperate. I plugged the game back in, hoping that maybe, just maybe, I could find some kind of explanation. The game loaded as usual. The same eerie music, the same foggy streets. But when I started playing, I realized something was different. My character wasn't alone. Standing a few feet away was the figure, the same one from my apartment. And this time, it was facing me, watching. I tried to move my character away, but the controls didn't respond. The screen flickered, and then the camera panned upward, showing the sky, which had turned a deep blood-red color. The sound of footsteps echoed through the speakers, getting closer and closer, until they seemed to be coming from directly behind me. I couldn't breathe. My hand shook as I reached for the power button. But before I could press it, the screen went black again, and a single line of text appeared on the screen. "You can't leave. I don't know how to end this. I don't know what's real anymore." The game? My apartment? The figure? It's all blending together. Sometimes I feel like I'm still in Silent Hill, trapped in the fog, with no way out. I wish I could say it ended there. I wish I could tell you that I pulled the plug, moved on, and never touched the game again. But that's not how it went down. After that night, things took a turn for the worse. The line between reality and the game blurred to the point where I couldn't tell which was which anymore. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Silent Hill. Not the game, but the town. The fog, the twisted creatures, and that figure, always watching. Days turned into nights without any sleep. I'd hear the whisper even outside my apartment, in the streets at work. The same voice hissing, "Come back." It followed me everywhere, like an invisible shadow I couldn't shake. My reflections started warping. I'd catch glimpses of myself, but distorted, like something was trying to crawl out of the mirror, clawing at the glass, begging to be let free. One night, I'd had enough. I couldn't take the isolation, the creeping dread that followed me like a shadow. So I decided to leave my apartment, get out of the city for a while just to clear my head. I packed a small bag, threw on a jacket, and headed for the door. But when I opened it, I froze. The hallway outside my apartment wasn't my hallway. It was the same long, eerie corridor from the game, the one with the flickering lights and damp, moldy walls. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, convinced I was hallucinating, but nothing changed. I slowly stepped out, the floor creaking beneath my feet, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. The door slammed shut behind me. I whipped around, reaching for the knob, but it was gone. The door had vanished, replaced by a solid brick wall. My stomach turned. Panic gripped me as I stumbled forward, trying to find my bearings, but every step I took brought me deeper into the nightmare. The air was thick with fog, and the walls felt like they were closing in on me. I could hear something in the distance, the faint echo of footsteps, growing louder with each passing second. My chest tightened as I realized they were coming toward me. I turned and ran. The hallway seemed endless, stretching on forever with no end in sight. The footsteps grew louder, closer, until I could hear breathing, heavy, raspy breathing right behind me. I glanced back, and there it was. The figure, the same one from the game, the same one that had been haunting my dreams. It was gaining on me, its long twisted limbs dragging across the floor as it moved with unnatural speed. I ran faster, my legs burning, my lungs screaming for air. I could feel its presence behind me, cold and oppressive, like a black hole pulling me in. Just as I thought it was about to catch me, I saw a door at the end of the hallway. A sliver of hope shot through me, and I sprinted toward it, slamming into the door and throwing it open without hesitation. I stumbled into a room, my room. I was back in my apartment. The familiar surroundings hit me like a wave of relief, but something felt off. The air was still thick, suffocating. And then I noticed it. The TV was on. I hadn't turned it on, but the game was running. Silent Hill. My character was standing in the middle of the fog-covered town, motionless, as if waiting for something. My heart dropped into my stomach. Before I could react, the screen flickered, and the camera zoomed in on a small figure standing at the edge of the town square. It was me. Not my character, me. I was standing in the game, wearing the same clothes I had on, staring back at myself through the screen. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, as the figure on the screen raised a hand and pointed directly at me. A chill ran down my spine as I slowly turned around. There, standing in the doorway of my apartment, was the figure. It was closer now, its face still hidden in shadow, but I could feel its eyes, cold, empty eyes, boring into me. The whisper started again, louder this time. "Come back, you never left." I couldn't think. My body acted on instinct as I grabbed the nearest object, a glass lamp, and hurled it at the TV. The screen shattered with a deafening crash, sparks flying as the glass scattered across the floor. The image of me disappeared, replaced by static. But the figure didn't move. It stood there, still watching, still waiting. Then it spoke. "You can't break free." Its voice wasn't a whisper anymore. It was deep, guttural, like it was speaking from somewhere far beneath the earth. My heart pounded in my chest as I backed away, my mind racing for a way out. But there was none. The figure took a step forward, its elongated limbs creaking as it moved. I felt a cold, suffocating dread wrap around me as it closed the distance, slowly, deliberately. I pressed myself against the wall, my legs shaking, my breath shallow. It reached out a hand, long, bony fingers stretching toward me. "No." I screamed, squeezing my eyes shut, waiting for the inevitable. But then nothing. The room went silent. No footsteps, no whisper, no cold breath on my neck. Slowly, I opened my eyes, and the figure was gone. My apartment was empty, silent. The air felt lighter, as if whatever had been haunting me had finally disappeared. I collapsed onto the floor, my body trembling from the adrenaline. I didn't know what had just happened, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. All I knew was that the nightmare was over. Or so I thought. Weeks passed, and I started to feel normal again. The nightmares stopped, the whispers disappeared, and the game? Well, I threw it away. I wanted nothing more to do with it. My life slowly went back to normal, or at least what I thought was normal. I got back into my routine, work, friends, the usual. But one night, as I was lying in bed, something woke me. A soft, familiar sound. A whisper. "Come back." I shot up, my heart pounding, my eyes scanning the room. It was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that presses down on you, suffocating you. I reached for my phone, fumbling to turn on the flashlight. And that's when I saw it. In the corner of my room, standing just outside the light's reach, was the figure. Its cold, empty eyes staring at me from the darkness. "You never left. I don't know what's real anymore. I don't know if I'm still in Silent Hill or if the game ever ended. Every time I think I'm free, it finds me again. The figure, the whisper, the town. It's all there, waiting, lurking just beneath the surface. I'm not sure how much longer I can take it. The line between this world and the other is so thin now, so fragile. Sometimes I feel like I'm walking through the fog, and any minute now, I'll turn a corner and be back in that cursed town with no way out. Maybe I was never supposed to leave. Maybe none of us were. I haven't touched a game console since. I've moved, changed my number, deleted every trace of Silent Hill from my life. But still, it follows. I can feel it. Some nights, I'll hear the footsteps again, pacing outside my door, or I'll catch a glimpse of the figure, just out of the corner of my eye, watching, waiting. And every time I hear the whisper, "Come back. Maybe one day I will."